Om Agyanatimirandasya Gana Salakaya Chaksurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shirve Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master, who has opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. My spiritual master is A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We took initiation from Srila Prabhupada back in 1971. And I've been practicing bhakti. This is now 2023. So I find that the highest purpose of my speaking is to carry on the work of my spiritual master, to humbly try to teach something very essential that Prabhupada has come over to the West to teach. In his pranam mantra, we say Nirvisesa Sunyavadi. Srila Prabhupada has come to the West to destroy impersonalism and voidism. So why would Prabhupada do that? Obviously, because number one, it's prevalent everywhere. Everyone is an impersonalist or a voidist. And it is actually detrimental to the individual. The impersonal philosophy states that the living entity, the jiva, the soul, and God are one. And this philosophy, which was popularized by Adi Shankar Acharya, teaches that the Atma, the self, is Brahman, and that the purpose of religion, meditation, should be for the self to realize it is Brahman. And when one realizes that he is Brahman and everything is Brahman, then there is no more suffering and one attains peace. This is the essence of the teaching of Adi Shankar. First of all, one should know that Shankaracharya is actually an expansion or a partial expansion of Lord Shiva. He taught the impersonal aspect of God realization because it defeated the prevalence of Buddhism in India at the time, and B, it brought the people, the general masses, back to the Vedic scriptures, which the Buddhists had conveniently thrown away. So God is making this movement from the Buddhism, which is voidism, to impersonalism, which is better than voidism, because voidists, they don't believe in anything. To them, it's nothing, absolute nothing. And whereas the impersonalist, he believes that Brahman is the absolute, that is consciousness, pure spiritual consciousness. That everything is pervaded by something that's pure and spiritual. Or in other words, the formless and is formless, the formless aspect of God. So after Adi Shankar, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came 500 years ago, who was a full incarnation of Lord Krishna, and he taught Achintya Beda Abeda Tattva, that everything is inconceivably and simultaneously one and different from God. So there are 4 Vaishnav schools. Vaishnav is one who worships Vishnu as being the absolute, and that the jiva, the self, is subordinate to Vishnu. So there are 4 schools of Vaishnavism that date back since time immemorial, with the most prevalent preachers being hundreds and hundreds and sometimes thousands of years ago. There is each of these sampradayas are The one sampradaya is starting with Rudra. I believe that's Nimbark Swami, who was the primary acharya for that sampradaya. Then there is also Brahma Madhva Gauriya, or the Brahma Madhvacharya. Then there is the Shri, which is Lakshmi. I believe that's Ramanujacharya, but I'm not sure. Then there is also the Kumar, the Kumar. Let's see. So there's Shri, Rudra, Kumar, Brahma. So the origins of these Vaishnav, a sampradaya or a parampara is a line, a lineage that goes back, that takes the initial essence of knowledge that was given by these great personalities and carries that forward and makes those teachings to its disciples or their disciples so that the disciples can gain from this knowledge. Why do we care so much in Vaishnavism about the Parampara Sampradaya system? It is because transcendental knowledge has to be handed down, because it is transcendental to anything that we can conceive. It cannot, the knowledge that we have in general is defective, is limited. So to get transcendental knowledge, it has to be received. It has to come to us. It has to be given to us. It descends. It's called descending knowledge, because the ascending form of knowledge is imperfect. We cannot attain through our senses, we cannot figure out or speculate as to what the absolute is, but the absolute can come down to us. It can speak to us. That is the difference. So these four sampradayas, each one of them, if you boil down the essence of what they're saying, and they have different names. They have what is called Dvaita Advaita, Shuddha Dvaita, Vashishta Dvaita. They have Achintya Beta, Beta Tattva. Each of these four sampradayas has, as the essence of its theology, the most important teaching with all of the Vaishnava sampradayas is that God and the Jiva, although they are both Brahman, God is Para Brahman. And the living entity, the Jiva, the self, is Brahman. Every one of these Vaishnava sampradayas recognizes the superiority of God. Para means supreme. Param means supreme. Each of the four sampradayas recognizes that there is an indwelling Lord in the heart of every embodied being. So there are two souls inside the body. There is the individual Jiva, the Atma, and then there is Paramatma, the super soul. And then God is also external to the body. He is in every body as the Paramatma, and he is external as well, living in his own place, separate from us. He is known as Vishnu, Narayan, Ram, and the original Swayam Bhagavan Sri Krishna. Now there is one impersonal parampara. That is Adi Shankar Acharya. And his philosophy is Advaita. Like we explained why he came to preach. His philosophy is known as Advaita, which means non-dualism. And so he taught that everything is Brahman, no differences between anything. So one of the most important tenets in Gaudiya or Vaishnavism, we're called Gaudiya Vaishnavas because we follow Brahma, Madhvacharya, and Sri Chaitanya, who is from Gaudiya, because he is a full incarnation of Krishna. So my spiritual master and all the acharyas teach the following, as does the Lord in Bhagavad Gita. Yes, the jiva is Atma or self, and that Atma is Brahman with a small b, Brahman. But the Jnani or the Karma Yogi or the Karma Yogi, the Jnani, any of these practices that focus exclusively on the self, they call it inquiry. Their purpose is to regain their original Brahman condition. They recognize that they have a body, and to overcome the limitations of the body, one simply has to recognize that he is Brahman. Brahman is eternal. It is not come into existence at some time. It does not die. It cannot be cut or withered. All of these statements are made by Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. But at the present moment, the jiva, the atma, is conditioned. We have a body. The jiva is conditioned by the mind, the false ego, ahankara, the intelligence, the senses. The living entity thinks that he is the body. In the animal kingdom, there is not enough intelligence to distinguish between self and body. But in the human form, it is possible. But if we are Brahman, why have we fallen? Or better, we are in a fallen state. So we were in the Brahman state originally. Brahman has no form. It has no material attributes. So there must have been some point when we were without the physical form. Brahman's eternal. But somehow we took on the physical state. Now, these impersonalists cannot explain why. They just go with, we are currently conditioned. That's okay. My question is, your focus is to return to this state of Brahman realization, but you have fallen from it originally. And if your sole focus is to return to that state, you will fall again. For whatever reason you fall from the beginning, you will again become conditioned. In fact, we see that persons who strive for this Atma self-realization, they may have glimpses, slight glimpses of this idea of eternality. But very, very quickly, the thoughts come back. One returns to his normal state of bodily consciousness. And if someone is a star performer and can sit for hours and not experience the mind or the body, he too must come back into the bodily state. He also does not stay free from the bodily state. Nobody can stay in the Brahman atmosphere. And if you don't believe that, just look at your own self. Again, if you believe you are Atman, pure consciousness, somehow you were overcome by the material energy. And if you don't know why, there is every reason to believe it will happen again. And again, and again. And that actually is exactly what Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. These Jnani yogis, Karma yogis, who don't pay attention to the separateness and superiority of Krishna, God, the transcendent personality, who are not aware of his presence and do not worship him as such, as being superior. Aruha Krishna Parampadam Tada. Impure intelligence forces the jiva to again come back into the bodily consciousness, to again resume material activities. No one can stay in that Brahman atmosphere because it is not natural. So what we are saying is, if you are sincere about your spiritual growth, just understand one thing, that if you put all your attention into self-inquiry, not only will it be hard for you to attain mastery over your senses, but you will ultimately fail. You cannot stay in the Brahman atmosphere. You require to land somewhere. You require a destination. You require shelter. And the Brahman atmosphere does not give that. That is why all of these yogis in the past and all of the yogis in the present and all of these yogis in the future will fail, because they don't recognize that there is a superior destination, a superior shelter. But everything is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. The proper path, the true path, is given in Bhagavad Gita. For instance, the Lord says, one who reaches me never returns. One who reaches me through bhakti does not return to this world of birth and death. The Lord says, Arjuna asks Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, of the two paths, one being the impersonal path toward your formlessness, your formless aspect, and the other being the personal path toward your personal aspect. Now, Arjuna is asking Krishna right to him. He's asking, which is better? And this question is relevant for all future generations. And Krishna says, of the two, the impersonal path, the impersonal way is most difficult. Whereas the path of bhakti is easy and one achieves me. He doesn't say that about the impersonal path. So the Lord is so kind, he's giving a choice, but he's saying, yes, you can choose which path you prefer. Now, in a sense, that's almost being disrespectful. Arjuna is asking this question to the Lord. He's right in front of him. He did it for future generations, because right in front of him is Krishna himself with his transcendental body. And when you say to someone, should I meditate upon your non-form or you? No one else asks this question to Krishna, because Krishna himself is the purpose, the goal of the Vedas. He explains this over and over again in the Bhagavad Gita. But for the benefit of future generations of persons who will come and espouse impersonalism, Krishna answered that question. He says, Susukam Kartamavini. This devotional process of worshiping me, doing yajna to me, yajna being sacrificed to me, having your heart and your mind wrapped up in thoughts of me, of my glories. He explains in the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, opulence of the absolute, of my glories. Glories indicates that Krishna is sentient. He has qualities, which is what the impersonalists hate to hear. God has qualities. And the bhakta rejoices to hear this. It brings happiness to his heart. But the impersonalist poo-poos it because it destroys their impersonalism. They cannot ever hear that Krishna is transcendental. They will immediately assign the transcendental form of the Lord to illusion, Maya. I've heard this over and over again. One lady says, it's not Krishna that is talked to the sun god Vivashwan 2 million years ago. because Krishna says this in the Bhagavad Gita. It's not Krishna. It was another great realized soul. It couldn't be Krishna because no one can live 2 million years. That's the whole idea behind Krishna saying that. He tells Arjuna, I took many births, so did you, but can remember all of them. You cannot, because God doesn't have the limitations that we do. So every one of these doubts that creeps into Arjuna's mind is answered by Krishna, that he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, coming before him, showing himself to Arjuna. And it is confirmed in the past by so many great souls. And this knowledge, Krishna says, I am now speaking to you today, just as I spoke this to the sun god millions of years ago. But in the course of time, this knowledge of myself becomes lost due to the influence of time and the degradation of society. So I invent myself, yuge, millennium after millennium, to reestablish the Dharma, the principles of religion. I come to reestablish the principles because they are getting lost over time. So what is the principle of religion? What is the Vedic Dharma? Vedic Dharma means to follow the principles of religion, to worship God, to perform yajna, sacrifice for the pleasure of God. And Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that if you perform yajna to Vishnu, then all the demigods are satisfied, everyone becomes happy, rain is coming, sunshine, moonshine, food is growing, grains, everything is satisfactory. There are gems, stones, wealth, real wealth is coming just by doing this yajna. And by doing yajna, in this age, the yajna that we do is the Hare Krishna mantra. We worship Vishnu, Narayan, Krishna by the Hare Krishna mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. In previous age, and this Hare Krishna mantra came with the advent of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu 500 years ago. In previous ages, there were different types of meditation to achieve Narayan, God. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. That was a mantra that was back in the Dwapara or Treta Yuga. You had the Ram Ayodhya, the kingdom of Ram, and the worship of Lord Ram, Sita Ram, which is still popular today. You had meditation in the Satya Yuga, Vasudeva and Devaki. All the great yogis were meditating 30, 40, 50,000 years. They lived for 100,000 years. So in this age of Kali Yuga, where the average age is only 100 years, and the attention span is very short, then it is recommended that we chant the Hare Krishna mantra for quickly being able to burn away our karma, to dissolve it, to transform our karma from lust into love of Godhead. And unless one does yajna, sacrifice to God, that is called bhakti yoga. There is no way of burning up this karma. No way. You cannot do an end run and cheat the process or the system. You cannot do it. There are the codes, Vaishnav codes or the Vedic codes, which must be observed. There are Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra, different types of Varna and ashram, and everyone has a specific type of psychophysical nature, and they should obey that, and they should approach God according to what is normal for them, to their duty, what they are most used to, but they should, what Krishna is teaching, put me in the center, worship me, regardless of who you are. If you put me in the center, whether you're Brahmin, Sudra, Vaishya, lower the dog eater, Krishna says, you can approach me and be successful by my grace if you worship me. So the key is to recognize Krishna as being the transcendental supreme person. This is the key. This is the knowledge that all the Vaishnava parampara and sampradayas are passing down. And all of the disciples of these gurus, we're all coming from the impersonal realm, all of us. We're all practicing this yoga, and we're all thinking that Atma is the absolute and Brahman is the absolute, all of us. It takes a powerful Vaishnava preacher to come and explain and give this transcendental knowledge. Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, Tadvidi pranipatin pariprashnena sevaya upadexyanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshana. So you just hear Krishna says, Tatranu, this knowledge of me, he says, from an authorized or from a realized soul. You must hear it. Don't debate it. Don't come with an attitude. You come with a submissive attitude, not a combative attitude. You sit at the feet of your guru and you hear. And as soon as that attitude is adopted, transcendental knowledge is transferred from the spiritual world unto you. And Krishna says that in the Bhagavad Gita, that when you hear about me, increasing joy comes into your life. This is a source of joy you never had before. It is greater than Brahman. This joy is ananda. It is greater than Brahman because Brahman is only sat, eternality. But Krishna consciousness or knowledge of para Brahman, in sat, it includes chit, which means transcendental knowledge. It includes ananda, bliss. So hearing the joy, hearing the transcendental qualities of Krishna, unlimited beauty, unlimited strength, wealth, fame, knowledge, renunciation, hearing the stories, the leela, the pastimes of Krishna brings unprecedented joy to the heart of the bhakta. A joy that puts to shame this Brahman realization joy, which is so sought after by these egotistical so-called yogis and teachers who think that God is formless only. They degrade God as being only formless. They do not know, Krishna says, about my superior nature. When I descend in human form, Krishna says, right in the Bhagavad Gita, when I descend in human form, these individuals, they talk down upon me. Naradam, they speak down upon me. That I am an ordinary being, took an ordinary birth. They do not know my higher nature. Krishna says it in Bhagavad Gita. Are you calling him a liar? That's what you must be doing. If you don't believe in the transcendental form of the Lord, then you're calling him a liar. But he's not Narodam, he's Narottam, because his form is absolute joy. And it will completely destroy all the impurities in the heart and help one to attain his highest spiritual identity as an eternal servant of Krishna. Now, again, this is hard for impersonalists to hear. What would you rather become? If you ask the ordinary person, here are the choices. Would you rather become God or servant of God? God or servant of God? And a question was posed to Duryodhana at the beginning of the Battle of Kurukshetra. Which would you prefer, Krishna says? Would you like me to be on your side? Would you like me to fight with you? Or would you like my army? Which would you prefer? Duryodhana chose Krishna's army. It's bigger, vast. He can see it. He'll win with it. How can this army be defeated by one person, Krishna? Arjuna said, I want you, Krishna, on my side. Similarly, the question is, do you want to become God or a servant of God? And all of these yogis, they choose, I want to be God, because God is an illusion. He doesn't exist. I would rather be God. I want to become the supreme. Everyone chooses this. Big mistake. Because you can never become God. The jiva can never become param atma. Never, ever, 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 ever. But if you choose servant of God, das, then you can become the supreme personality of servitude Godhead. You can attain your transcendental nature completely free from birth, death, old age, and disease. You will have conquered the problem that all of these yogis are trying to conquer and can never conquer. You will overcome Maya by becoming a servant of Krishna and eternally serving the Lord's transcendental senses. This concept is what is being transferred from the highest realm back millions of years to Vaishnavas today. Same message has never changed. Our purpose as Vaishnavas is to serve the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, to aspire to serve the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, and to attain eternal association of Lord Krishna in his transcendental abode, which the impersonalists don't believe in. We wish to attain his transcendental abode known as Goloka, of which profuse descriptions are given by Lord Brahma, who is the co-creator of this universe. So the Vaishnava has so much information by the grace of Krishna beyond his own senses, whereas the impersonalist has none of this information, simply because he will deny himself. It's available. Anyone can come over to the Vaishnava side and hear this conclusive information given by Krishna and his pure devotees. And very quickly one can become immersed in this transcendental love of God. Just hearing about this is enlivening. When Arjuna heard the words of Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, he became so enlivened to do his duty and fight the enemy. He went from being depressed and throwing down his bow to picking it up and going into battle with full vigor. Krishna tells Arjuna, in all situations, be a yogi. So we must be a yogi. Pick up your bow and arrow, knowing Krishna as a supreme personality of Godhead, the goal and the purpose of all the Vedas. Pick up your bow, pick up your arrow, and do your duty. And by doing that, Krishna says, you will attain me. And then he says at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, having attained me, you will never come back to this world of birth and death. Martyaloka, never. You will go back to my Godhead, back to my planet. This is the good news. This is the ultimate message. This is the progressive message that went from Buddhism to Adi Shankar's impersonalism to Sri Chaitanya, who gave the complete message as a complete incarnation of God. That the jiva is inconceivably and simultaneously one and different from God. We are qualitatively, we have the same nature as God. We are both, Krishna is Brahman and we are Brahman. We have the same nature. We are Saguna. The jiva has qualities just like God. We are a drop of we are a qualified spark, a infinitesimal spark of the great fire, Krishna. He has qualities of beauty. We have qualities of beauty. He has qualities of strength. We have qualities of strength. We have sagun qualities. This again is not what the impersonalist believes. He only believes what he can see, or what he believes is with his own mind. Doesn't believe the Shastra. Does not believe when we speak to him this way. He covers his ears. Very sad. Don't do this. Keep your ears open. If we glorify Krishna and you hear with a humble heart, you will be so happy. All of your disease of wanting liberation will be gone. It takes time, actually, because it's been so many lifetimes of struggling with this idea of moksha, that when one finally is given the opportunity to become a bhakta, it's so amazing. At some point in our bhakti career, you give up this idea of even wanting liberation. That's not why we chant. We don't chant for moksha. Yet, as an impersonalist, that's all you do is meditate for moksha. That's all you can do. And we don't have anything. In fact, it's a burden for us. At some point when we chant because it's so pleasurable to be in such a tight union, a bond with Lord Krishna. It's like overwhelmingly so happy to have found him. He's coming, we're accepting him, and we're so happy. He's an ever fresh, ever present experience. Krishna has an eternally youthful body that never grows old by a second, a minute, a day. It's always filled with eternal youth. And when we become aware of this through devotion, who cares anything about this liberation? Liberation is something that is made up. It is a sideshow at a circus. It has nothing to do with the Vedic scriptures, nothing. Only those who are obsessed with fruitive activity and introspection about themselves care about liberation, because their minds are working overtime. They want freedom from the mind. But a bhakta doesn't care at all. He is only concerned is, I just want to remember Krishna. I want to be able to serve his lotus feet. They're so soft. They're so wonderful. It's so thrilling to be in his association. As bhaktas, we have unity among ourselves, all the Vaishnav communities. If I go to a Ramanuj temple or see Srinath Ji or see a different Lakshmi Narayan anywhere, I am so happy to take darshan of the Lord. I'm so happy to see the deity of the Lord and take darshan and perhaps have some charnamrita and some prasad. Smell the incense, offer a flower, do some service, offer my obeisances, hear the glories of the Lord and the association of the bhaktas. There's nothing higher or better that I can possibly conceive of doing. So among all Vaishnavas, we have unified. None of us have any difference as far as the main principles of our practice. But the impersonalists, those who defy Krishna's eternality and superiority, who try to bring him down to the ordinary level, do not give him the special treatment that he deserves, we cannot associate with you, because you are offensive to Krishna, and we cannot tolerate that. We cannot tolerate that. You do not accept the superiority of the Lord, the transcendental nature of the Lord. So we must avoid your association, especially if you are trying to distribute the Hare Krishna mantra. You teach Om Namo Shivaya, Hare Krishna, it makes no difference. We strongly will avoid you very much. We are not into this yatapat, Yatamat Tatapat. Yatamat Tatapat. No, this is Ramakrishna. All paths lead to the same. No, not true. We vehemently disagree with that. All paths do not lead to the same. This is part of the Mayavadi conclusion and does not hold water in the Vedas at all. Wrong understanding. The best thing you can do for yourself is to go and listen to a Vaishnav guru, who he will give you a proper understanding of the absolute truth. And then you can make substantial advancement. Your time will not be wasted. Your life will be spent properly at every moment. Take the proper guru. If you take the wrong guru, you hear from the wrong guru, you will be involved in this impersonal meditation like being on a hamster wheel. You'll never make advancement. You will only imagine yourself to be liberated. And yet you will have avoided the lotus feet of Krishna. Never to smell the beauty of his body in your mind and your heart. Only thing you will have is your mind listening to itself. The four Kumaras were actually impersonalists. They were young boys. And they were also impersonalists. They were completely involved in the Atma, Jnani, self-realization. I told you, everyone starts out this way. Even Brahma himself. The Kumaras are sons of Brahma. Even Brahma, the first living entity in this world, when he opened his eyes, he found himself sitting on a lotus flower. And he looked around and it was all dark because the creation had not been created yet. The universe had not been created. It was like a building with no infrastructure. So the first thing he did was use his senses to figure out where he was. So he went down into the stem of the lotus. It was watery, jala, and he started swimming. All dark. It's going nowhere. He's holding his breath, going down, trying to find his source. We call this the ascending process of knowledge, depending on one's senses to gain knowledge. And then he was futile. He couldn't figure it out. He didn't know anything, had not become empowered by the Lord yet. He was new and in darkness. And he heard in the sky 2 syllables. Tapasya, austerity. So from this he can understand, because it's coming from God. Along with those 2 syllables, he could understand what they meant. Because God, Narayan, actually, it was Garbhodaksha Vishnu. It gave him the understanding to go meditate. So he went back to the top where he was coming from, to the top of the lotus. He sat in a meditative position for, in the estimation of the demigods, 1,000 years. And then he opened his eyes and saw the source of his being, Garbhodaksha Vishnu, from his belly button, navel, Padma, was sprouting this lotus upon which Brahma was sitting. The 4 Kumaras, who were sons of Brahma, they were self-absorbed into Brahman realization. They were young boys, completely realized. And they could travel here and there. Different places, different planetaries, different planets. And when they came to Vaikuntha, they smelled the incense coming from the worship of Lord Narayan. And they immediately became personalists because the sweetness. Now, they had no attraction for material life at all, but the incense coming from the Lord attracted them, which means that the qualities of Lord Narayan are not material. Otherwise, the 4 Kumaras wouldn't have been attracted because they had no attraction for any of the glitter of Maya. But the incense from the Lord attracted them because it was not an ordinary smell. So many stories like this. And we want to become charmed by Krishna. And this is what Krishna wants for us as well. He wants to charm us because when he charms us, we lose our interest in material life and we gain so much interest in God. Like a child is holding on tightly to a toy, and you come and you try to get the toy out of the child's hand. It holds it tightly, and if you pull it, you'll cry. The child will cry. You can't get the toy out of his hand. The toy it's not of any great value. It's just an ego thing. But if you put something that looks like shinier, nicer out, immediately the child lets go of the lesser quality toy and grabs the shinier toy. Krishna knows this. He's using very simple logic with us. He's charming us so that we're not charmed by the beauty of Maya, which is impossible for anyone to not be charmed by. Everyone is charmed by Maya. Everyone is overwhelmed by Maya, Maya Devi. By Cupid, no one can transcend, can get out of the grips of Cupid, except someone who is charmed by Krishna, because Krishna is thousands of times more charming than Cupid. So someone who is charmed by Krishna is no longer charmed by the material world. It's a fact. This is how we get out of material life, by becoming attached to Krishna. When Krishna descended 5,000 years ago, he descended and he became part of the Pandavas. He had relationships. Relationships cause bonds. So relationship with Krishna is part of the process of devotional life. The deity, we have a deity in our home, we treat the deity like our child. This is the age-old process of worship of the deity. Having a relationship with Krishna is the cause of our liberation. And denying that relationship with Krishna is the cause of our bondage. Why did the jiva fall from his position of Brahman? Because he was negligent about his service to Krishna. He did not know that he is a servant, that he has this relationship. He did not know, so he fell. He was obliged to fall into the hands of Maya, who charmed him, who keeps a tight hold on all of his senses. But when one is given this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, one is given this awareness, oh my God, I have a relationship with God. I am Brahman, he is Param Brahman. I have this relationship with God. How wonderful is that? I didn't know, or I have forgotten. Now it is being given, so I must take it. I must water this relationship, this seed of bhakti. I must water it. I must develop it until I am in love with Krishna, called prema. Prema. As we water the seed of bhakti through yajna, heartfelt feelings come into the heart. These are not ordinary material feelings that the impersonalist thinks the bhakta has. Oh, you bhaktis, you're just chanting and dancing up and down, but that is inferior to gyan, they say. Being in the meditative state with no qualities is higher. Who says this? And then they would try to find this truth. They try to find out this in the Bhagavad Gita. And they say, oh, it says in Bhagavad Gita. No, then you have not read Bhagavad Gita. Then never does it say that this Brahman state is higher than devotion to Krishna. Ever, 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 ever. We can quote you verse after verse after verse that taking up the process of bhakti is higher than gyan. It is the ultimate process. It is independent of gyan. It is the only way that the heart, which is where the jiva is, can speak to God. God and the jiva are together in the body. They're very, very close. The Param Brahman, Krishna, the super soul, knows everything about the jiva. And he says that in Bhagavad Gita, I have been traveling with you from body to body, from life to life. I know everything about you. I remind you about your interests and what you've done and your desires, and I reward them and benedict them. And this, and Krishna says, I'm the overlord. I'm the permitter, the seer. But you, Arjuna, the other living entity in the body, you don't know, remember your death, your births and your deaths and what you did in the previous life. So what is the language between us? Krishna is explaining to Arjuna, Tesham satata yuktanam, vajatam kriti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yenamam upayanti te. My devotees are immersed in this hearing and chanting and remembering and glorifying of me. This is the language of bhakti. They are immersed because it is thick. It is greater than the love a mother has for a child. It is so great that we have a love for God and vice versa, that the gopis were praying, were saying to Lord Brahma, he is the co-creator of all the forms in the material world. Lord Brahma, you are such an imbecile that you created us with eyelids, that we blink, even for a moment, we cannot see the beauty of Krishna and drink his beauty through our eyes. How unfortunate we are, the gopis were condemning themselves like this, because love of Krishna, prem, is very powerful. It's so powerful, one has zero interest in his own self. At that moment, he's so immersed in the loving qualities of Krishna. How can one think of anything other than Krishna? We don't say to Krishna at that time, a prem or bhav, we don't say, Krishna, give me liberation. That's not what we asked for. It's not, we never ask for this. We only pray, Krishna, give me constant remembrance of you. Allow me to serve you in this particular way. That is what Krishna will reward us with. That you ask Krishna a favor like that, he will benedict you with this. In order for you to have constant remembrance of him, you will be given a spiritual body like the gopis or the cowherd boys, Mother Yashoda. You will be given a spiritual body by which you can be immersed in a relationship with Krishna. That is Vaishnavism. Or if you go to Vaikuntha, there all of the residents have formed identical with Narayan. Forearm, they look just like Narayan. Vishnu Dutas, everyone has perfect form, they're in perfect happiness, they have all mystic powers, they are completely in love with Lord Narayan, they serve. And Vaikuntha means no anxiety, spiritual world, everything is eternal, no time to destroy anything, there's nothing degrading, everything is transcendental. So that is the aspiration that we have. It is to serve Krishna, because the love that we are experiencing is beyond anything we've ever experienced before. And we don't want something to come in between that. We don't want to muddy the waters with something like liberation. That is only for those who are not tasting the love of Krishna. We are tasting. We have a deep relationship where anyone who is experiencing a deep relationship with Krishna is already liberated. They already have found the solution to life. Now they're just deepening that experience. That is why I say earlier, get on the right train. Put your efforts to work properly. If you are on the impersonal train, the formless train, going nowhere, the valuableness of your life is decreasing every single day. Because if you ever able to experience a formless state of God consciousness, it's momentary, It has limitations. It's not permanent. Again, you will come down to this earthly plane, looking and seeking, looking and seeking, looking and seeking, trying to find a solution. Until you meet a Vaishnav worshiper of Lord Vishnu, Lord Narayan, Lord Krishna, Lord Brahma. Until this happens, you will continue to rotate. Don't remain a fool, a mudha, a rascal. Don't do this. Give up this bogus type of meditation that's not going to earn you eternal position, a permanent solution. You just understand that there is something else beyond what you think. Even if you are not accustomed to thinking as a Vaishnava, you just hear the oodles and oodles of information that support the personal form of God, the personal attributes of God. If you hear them from authority and you listen, your whole mind will change imperceptibly and then perceptibly. Your whole attitude will change and you will run from impersonalism and you will never return. Never. Because within the personal conception of Krishna, impersonalism is already there. Eternality is already there. It's a sub-feature of bhakti. It's nothing to strive for independently. It's given to you, as well as chit, which is knowledge of the Param Atma, how the God exists in the heart. That is transcendental knowledge. And Ananda, which is the bliss coming from the Leela of Bhagavan Sri Krishna, who he performs his Leela in Gokula, Golok, Vaikuntha. These Leelas are transcendental and they bring utmost joy to the heart of the bhakta. No material tinge whatsoever to the Leelas of Lord Krishna. He's loving the gopis. He's playing with the cowherd boys. He's acting as an ordinary child with Mother Yashoda. These are divine Leelas, performed with a divine body by divine Lord and his divine associates. This is something that you will learn if you take up Krishna consciousness. And I promise you, the one thing that you will have is you will leave behind this mundane urge for liberation, which is haunting you. This is the only reason you're not taking up Krishna consciousness, because you're worried that you will not get your liberation. And I say two things to you, and then I'm going to stop the video. The first thing is, even if you work hard at this liberation, and you chant Om, 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 Namo Shivaya, Om, Om, maybe in between your breaths, you will feel some relief. Maybe you'll even attain a higher position where for a day or two or a few hours, you will feel constant happiness from this eternal formless experience. It can happen. But then again, and you've already seen this happen to you over and over and over, your mind and your body take over. You again come into the body. So you have to always be practicing, always keeping your distance from things, always striving for this. And then after a while, you just can't even listen to your mind because everything you think is dangerous. It's so hard to befriend the absolute. It's so hard to befriend your true self this way. You lose in every part of that meditational process. You lose. And most importantly is you lose the time that you really could be spending devoting your heart to the real transcendental absolute. That's the sad part. Here I am now, over 50 years practicing bhakti. When I first began, I was a dyed-in-the-wool, hardcore impersonalist, practicing Buddhism and then Zen Buddhism, trying my hardest. And then even when I came to Krishna consciousness, because I liked the incense and the prasadam and the deities and the saffron, everything was so nice. So I came, but even 2 years into being a bhakta, I'm chanting Hare Krishna, thinking about liberation. Will this liberate me? Will this liberate me? Will this sound liberate me? I'm looking for this experience. And for 2 years, I'm not receiving anything. And you know what happened after 2 years? Because I didn't want to leave. I'm a very determined individual. I like to perfect whatever I do. When I really put my mind to something, I want to see it through. And I knew that this is a very deep, very important thing for me. I wanted to become God conscious. So something happened to me very interesting. After trying for 2 years, I'm getting up in the morning, 3 o'clock, I'm chanting my rounds, worshiping Tulsi, seeing the deities, taking prasadam, then spending the rest of the day out on the streets, distributing books, chanting Hare Krishna, distributing books, chanting Hare Krishna. So all of my time is going by. I'm no longer in college. I'm not involved with any business. My parents are not happy with me, but I refuse to give up. I go on and on and on and on. And I can't understand. I'm chanting every day. Why am I not liberated already? I want this liberation. After 2 years, something interesting happened to me. I gave up the idea of liberation. And I kept chanting. I couldn't believe it. I stopped thinking about liberation. And when I chanted my rounds, something happened extraordinary. I fell in love with Krishna. He charmed me. It was so funny. I was laughing so hard. I was thinking of Krishna's pastimes. His Leela with the gopis and the cowherd boys came into my mind for the first time, like really came into my mind. And I realized, oh my God, I'm feeling the form of the Lord. And I'm experiencing his charm, his joy, his youthfulness from chanting. And I got it. I said, this is the real thing. It's the transcendental joy coming from remembering Krishna and serving him. And I started crying tears of joy. And the burden that was on my shoulders, not just for 2 years, but probably 2,000 lifetimes, his burden of wanting liberation was removed. This heavy weight of wanting liberation was removed. It never came back. I became a Vaishnava that day. I became so interested in everything related to Krishna and Krishna only. And Krishna and I became best friends. And then I realized he's always been my best friend. He's always been there. And I was so happy that this last hurdle had finally been given up, that I could have this relationship with him. This was the missing piece. And ever since then, when I chant my rounds, I'm not saying it's been a cakewalk for 50 years, because I've had to go through prarabdha karma and different karmas that are within me. Now with Vaishnava, when you adopt the principles of Krishna consciousness, you don't produce new karma, but there is old karma that is getting transformed or destroyed, however you look at it. So there's still challenges. I'm not saying never a challenge, but I can tell you this: I never, ever again forgot my best friend Krishna, ever. I've always kept him close by. I always recognize that he is my best friend. He is truly my best friend. He's young, he's ever fresh, and he's always happy. And with whatever struggles I've had along the way in Bhakti Yoga, Krishna has always been there with me, always guiding me, talking with me, being there, allowing me to remember him. Because no one's life in this material world is really amounts to anything. It's always a struggle. Everyone can attest to that. It's always a struggle. So after 50 years of chanting, I'm so happy that I have in my life my best friend as I'm approaching into my oldest part of my life. I have my best friend with me. Don't you think my happiness is like unlimited? I have no fear of death. I'm already involved with my next life. I'm traveling with the Lord. I have so much going on that I'm not concerned with the moment I die. A, a real Vaishnava who is instilled with Krishna consciousness, he's alive forever. He's only going to change his body at death. So even the worst fears that people have about death do not enter the mind of someone who is preoccupied with the youthfulness, eternality, eternal youthfulness of Lord Krishna. So just imagine how powerful that experience was, that I gave up the idea of liberation, even. It's like, no, 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 I'm holding on tight. No, I can't let go. And then I let go because I'm frustrated. Krishna didn't force me to leave it, to make it let go. Krishna doesn't force us like that. He charms us. So I'm holding on. I'm holding on to this idea of liberation. I'm holding. And I'm keeping from myself all the joy of Krishna consciousness. I'm still thinking that this liberation is it. But when I became frustrated, so Krishna teaches us this idea of frustration. Who comes to Krishna? He says in Bhagavad Gita, people come to me for 4 reasons. They want money or a good wife or good husband. They want knowledge. They are suffering with some disease or sickness or something. They're suffering. They come to me. They're on their deathbed. They come to me. Or they're curious. They really want knowledge and they come to me. 4 different reasons. But Krishna says, whatever reason you approach me is good. Just approach me. If you approach me, I will reciprocate with you. He doesn't force us. Love is voluntary. So I'm hanging on to liberation. Krishna says, okay, I'm not taking that toy away from you. Hang, go ahead, it's okay. But the incense and the flowers and the practice of bhakti, after a while, it was overwhelming. And I wasn't getting my liberation. So when I smelled the flowers offered to the deity, taking the Charnamrita, where I really started hearing the Vedic mantras coming from the Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, I really started hearing my spiritual master speaking. All of these things, somehow I started letting go of this self-idea that I had of liberation. And that is something I built up over a long, long period of time, not just one life. So letting go of something that big is a huge deal. And like I said, when I let go of that false notion, the entire world, Krishna's world, opened up to me. I found myself to be so small, so tiny, so inconsequential, so like a novice, at this. I couldn't even understand how I was in the ocean, the shore of the ocean. But Krishna said, it's okay, come forward, come. I felt so humbled. I was just very, very insignificant on the shore of bhakti because the glories of Krishna are overwhelming. They're powerful. They're very, very powerful. So naturally, we say as Vaishnavas, one has to approach God very humble. There has to be humility, not this demand. Where's my liberation? Where's my liberation? No. Krishna is not obliged to respond to that. But if we approach properly, if we feel so naked at the shore of bhakti Oh my God, these are Krishna's qualities. I'm being introduced to God. And every aspect of God's qualities are infinitely spiritual and invigorating and transcendental. And this is the same mood I experienced. This is the same mood I read about that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya experienced as well, when he recognized, oh my God, this is God. This is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna. I'm associating with God himself. Only God can give all these different definitions of the Atmarama verse. He was overwhelmed. He could understand that God is greater than him. And when you have that direct experience, it is truly life-changing. So in one sense, I'm very sympathetic to all the impersonalists. I am very sympathetic and empathetic, because all of us come from that position. On the other hand, my guru, throughout the time of his manifest Leela on this earth, he continually battered the impersonalists, called them rascals and fools for denying the form of Krishna. And Krishna himself says these things in Bhagavad Gita. So guru means one who is heavy. Heavy because they use strong words to disassociate us from Maya. The guru is using his strength to cut us from Maya, to cut our attachment to Maya. They don't use flowery words. The flowery words of the Vedas will not get you Krishna. They will get you the higher planetary systems. The flowery words of the Vedas are karma kanda. Strong words are difficult. And Krishna and Guru give you the strong words. And they're meant, and when we go through the process of Krishna consciousness, it's cleansing the heart means doing surgery on the heart. It means giving up attachment for the material world. You do your part, and Krishna says, you do your part, and I will do my part. I will come close to you. If you approach me, Krishna says, by one step, I will take 10 steps to you. That is a fact. That is a fact. So when we finally have our illusion dispelled and we finally understand here is the Lord, we will never forget him again. Birth after birth, if we take another birth, wherever we may be, we will never forget Krishna again, because we have done the hard work. We've given up even liberation, let alone all other material attachments as insignificant goals. We've given up the hardest one, which is self-liberation. We've let go. And when that burden leaves our shoulders, it is like tons of weight has come off of our shoulders. After all, Krishna says, everything is being supported by me, like pearls on a thread. He says it in Bhagavad Gita. He explains his situation to Arjuna. He says, you can understand because you are my friend. I'm not Krishna's friend. I read Bhagavad Gita, but at some point, the magic of Bhagavad Gita will affect you and me, where we will also become real friends of Krishna. Confidence. The knowledge that Arjuna got, we will also get. And we will become close to Krishna. And when that happens, we will live in the existence of Krishna, in his association. And when we have the association of the Lord, and we are tight with the Lord, when we are bound by the heart, bhakti, to Krishna, there is no more fear of birth, death, old age, and disease. That is the secret. That is the real secret of Krishna consciousness. We will come to the point where Krishna is so dear to us. We want his satisfaction. Even though he is Atmaram and fully self-satisfied, he is so dear to us, we care about him. We want his satisfaction. We want his happiness. We are thinking of him more than we are thinking of ourselves. That is selflessness. That is real selflessness. I want to be a permanent part of the Krishna family. I want to be a permanent part of the Krishna Leela family. I want to be a family member with Krishna. I want to have an eternal heart-to-heart relationship with Krishna. That is my honest, highest desire. My family now, it's very interesting. We have family now, many of us, and we have relationships, mother, father, child, wife. But the present members of our family will all be gone. As we will be gone to them, they will be gone to us. So one time in the house of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the house of Srinivasacharya, there was Harinam dancing going on, beautiful dancing and intense bhakti and crying and emotions. And Srivas Thakur, Srinivasacharya's son, died during that kirtan in the other room. He was a young boy, he died. And so Lord Chaitanya brought him back to life and asked him, why did you leave your parents like this? And the boy responded, which parents? I've had many, many parents. I will have many more. Which one are you talking about? So this is very informative for us. Even though we are very in love with our relatives and our siblings and everything, we were before many, many lifetimes. Every lifetime we are in this lifetime, and we will be in the next if we continue with no change. This is how it works. But our desire in Krishna consciousness is, I am the eternal servant of Lord Krishna. Jivera Swarupoi Nitya Krishna Das. I want to be associated in the family with Krishna forever and ever and ever. When I leave my body, I want to join the Leela of Krishna. In any universe he is performing his Leela, I want to be there. I want to be a part of it, however I possibly can. I only want to be associated deep in my heart with bhakti at every moment in loving pastime with Krishna. That is the highest desire. That is the cum laude, the supreme desire of the individual soul. How to be in eternal relationship with Krishna. Nothing higher. That is the only desire. Because the love that Krishna gives, his charm is so intense, it takes away any other desire. It causes so much selflessness in the individual soul. It works magic. It completely frees me from all thoughts of karma and gyan. No desire for any of that. Yet all of my other lifetimes, I was thinking karma kanda, jnana kanda, I was thinking, but now in this lifetime, I've given up all of that. And I'm so happy just being the eternal associate of Krishna. So I was actually going to use this opportunity for speaking very strongly against the impersonalists, but I got so caught up in the glories of Krishna that I just want to leave on that note because it's such a beautiful feeling. And I just pray that I have conveyed to you some of the glories of Krishna consciousness. I think I have done that. So in this way, I think I've pleased my Lord, and we will again meet on the next video. Hare Krishna.